Hi, and welcome to our first ever Scribe Tribe session. We are kicking off with a session titled A Drawn Retrospective. So, today we're going to have a little dive into using a retrospective lens, looking back, processing, reflecting, but doing it in a drawn way. So this gives you a nice visual record of this process that you're going to go through. And this is a great way to close out either the year, if you're doing it at the end of the year, at the end of a project, the end of a week, whatever you might be coming towards the end of. This is a great way to close out in preparation for a new beginning. So I'm going to walk you through it today. We're going to run through a little bit of theory, so you've got some tools to apply to the task, and then I'm going to walk you through a framework. You'll be able to capture this framework down during the session, and then I encourage you to take some more deeper, slower time after the end of this session to really work through the template as we capture it today. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Hayley. I am the Chief Doodler at Thoughts Drawn Out. We are a creative consultancy that is really passionate about helping the world communicate more creatively and vigorously with each other. And these Scribe Tribe sessions are a way that we can encourage our supporters or people who are curious about jumping into the world of doodling to start doing so and using it as an effective tool to increase their communication effectiveness. So as we work through today, I encourage you to doodle along. Please do have a pen in hand, a notebook ready to go. You don't ever have to show anyone this page. This is about you enjoying the process. So doodle as we go. I do encourage you to ask questions. You can save them to the end if you'd prefer, or type them into the chat and I'll come to them at the end. I do just ask that if you're not talking, put yourself on mute so that we have less background noise. So, by way of setting up what we are here to do today, I'd like to first talk to you about what is visual storytelling and why is it so powerful. So, for me, visual storytelling is the coming together of three domains. They are sense making, storytelling, and pictures. And it's the combination of these three things that really unlock this visual language for us. And we can apply them on three levels. So, visual storytelling can be a great way to understand yourself, it can be a great way to interact with others, and it also is a great way to make sense of the world around us. So, by pulling these three domains together, you really do unlock a whole bunch of stuff. So, the style of drawing that we use when I say the picture component of those three domains is about drawing in icons. So, this is not about capturing things with realistic realness and having works of art that are fit for the Louvre. This is not about that. This is about using symbols, using icons, using a thing to represent another thing. And if you know what it means, then it is working for you. So as you kind of build these skills in drawing, you build an icon bank in your brain of things you know how to draw. And the more things you can put into that library, the easier this tool becomes to apply because you're not trying to constantly think through, how do I draw this? You go, what's in my icon bank that I can use to represent this thing? Okay, great. I've got something. I'll use it. So it's about getting past the challenge of the drawing and getting into putting the drawing to work for you. And that's really what we want to practice here today. So jumping right into that toolkit, I'm going to start by sharing with you 7 key principles for giving pictures meaning. So these are principles that you can use to make decisions about the marks you put on your page. So we're going to work through each of those and I'll talk you through, and I encourage you to doodle down some notes as we go so that you can reference back. Now, I love these principles. I use them every day in my visual communication. But it would be remiss of me to not mention where I first got all of these ideas from. And it's from this fabulous book. I mentioned it down in the bottom right there. It's called Picture This, and the author is Molly Bang. I encourage everybody to get a copy of this book. It completely changed how I thought about the blank page in front of me and how I can use it as a tool to create a response and a reaction in my audience. But I'm going to break down these 7 and share them with you now. As you can see, I've already circled each of them because each one is important, but we're still going to run through them. Okay, so I just grab myself a color here. I'm going to start up here. Hierarchy. So when we think about our page, we have to think about where we place things on our page to give them greater or lesser significance. So the higher something is up on your page, the more importance or significance it has. The lower down, the lesser significance. The one thing that would change this is if we add a horizontal line across the page, which now acts as a horizon. Once you add that horizon line, you've now separated your page into land and sky. Now things become grounded and floating. They are what's on the earth versus in the air, and it changes that meaning. So you can do that yourself by just simply adding a horizon line or choosing to omit it. Building on from there, if we come over here to direction and movement. So we automatically assume that movement on our page is going to move from left to right. This is because we read from left to right. Therefore, the left is the past, the right is the future. So unless our page indicates otherwise, that is the assumption we make about how movement is happening on our page. So if you want something to look like it is looking back into the past, you need it to have a motion that's moving back towards the left-hand side of the page. Now, this is about how we use the space on the page. Now let's jump into what we're actually putting on our page. So for that, I'm going to start by coming down here into shapes. So how you choose to capture things on your page will build a different meaning into them based on the sorts of shapes you use, because shapes inherently have meaning built into them. So if we take a circle, for example, a circle has motion and movement baked in. A circle cycles. We assume it is rotating, it is spinning, it is moving. It's baked into the idea of a circle that it doesn't sit still. It moves, it rotates, particularly goes round and around and joins back up to where it started and keeps going. Similarly, a triangle also has change baked into it because you cannot move up or down the sides of a triangle without the shape increasing or decreasing. Change is baked in. On the flip side, squares are more solid. They do not roll, they do not change as you move up or down. They are solid, square foundations. They are often containers. They have an inside and an outside. They have a safe space and the outside space. So, how you choose to put content into shapes can bring some of this meaning to your page, and you can do it with intention. Now that we're starting to get some shapes happening, we need to think about the form of those shapes. So we come to size and proximity. How you place objects on your page matters. So a bigger object is going to have more prominence than a smaller object. And then how close you put those objects together can denote a relationship. Are they moving away from each other? Are they leaning in towards each other? Are they overlapping? Is one above the other? So you can show some hierarchy within your page, within the objects in your page, and also some relationships just by those choices that you make. Now, the one principle here for how we give pictures meaning that you are probably familiar with is the idea of color, because we know that color has meaning baked into it. So when we see the color red, we're immediately going to go to perhaps anger or danger or even passion. It's a strong color. Whereas blue, on the other hand, is the color of water. It can often be an emotional color. It can mean cold. It can be sad. Green, while we often say green with envy, it probably more often than not reflects nature and sustainability or the environment or something being, eco-friendly. Those are the kinds of things that come to mind when we use the color green. Yellow can be about sunshine and hope and shining a light on things and bright new days. Uh, Whereas other colors like purple is often used to denote royalty. So you can make intentional choices about how you embed those colors onto your page. Similarly to the use of color is how we use tone, how we use dark or light to set a mood. So we know that things that happen in the cloak of darkness have an air of mystery. They can be a secret. They can be, something to be kept private. It's a whole different vibe to the stuff that happens in the broad light of day. So this whole concept of dark and light and the balance of dark and light on your page can change the whole mood of the page. And then in addition to those, we also can think about just the general way we put the lines down and how much curve or point we give them. So a page comprised of nice, gently, softly curving lines has a much gentler, flowing feel to it than something that is jagged and sharp with lots of pointed edges, which is going to be more aggressive. It's going to be more invasive. It's going to be more cutting. So even just the way you write letters, the way you shape your triangle, whether it's very sharp points in its corners or slightly curved points in the corners, can change the whole vibe. So it's this one down here. So having these 7 principles now in our back pocket and knowing that we are drawing in icons or symbols rather than realistic captures, you can now choose very simple icons, but embed them with a whole bunch of meaning in how you choose to form them. So a big red triangle dominating the center of your page could be about a big, scary change. Something soft and flowing and blue that's moving away from other objects could be about a sad goodbye. So it's about how you take these principles and apply them into the very, very basic icons you want to use to represent things. And all of a sudden, voila, you have a whole bunch of meaning going on. So now that we have this kind of toolkit at our disposal, I want to jump in and start drawing for you our template for today that we're going to use using these principles, but we need to put them to work for us in the context of a retrospective. So we're looking back. So we're going to look back at a year, but you could use this same approach to look back at the end of a project or a piece of work or a job or the end of a period of time in your life. However you want to apply it, the same thinking will work. So the first thing we want to do is we want to get you on the page because this is, after all, about you. It is your retrospective. Now, because we're going to be looking back from this point, we're going to put you over on the right-hand side of the page because you're at the end and we're now going to look back from that starting point. So I'm going to start with my very simple Jellybean people. So we're going to do a circle for a head, a couple of lines down to give us a body, 2 more lines for legs with circles for feet. I'm just going to tuck those arms in behind the back with some curves there and give myself a face with just 2 eyes and a mouth. Now we want this to feel like you. So I want you to think now about a very simple icon you could add onto the chest of your person here to denote that it's you. What are you passionate about? Do you need a really big heart in the center of your chest? Do you need a flower because you're an avid gardener? Do you want to put some icons that represent how many children you have? Whatever it might be. So for me, I might want to go, I'm going to draw my pen and some squiggly lines because that really captures me and what I'm all about. So get yourself on your page, because now what we're going to do is give ourselves a bit of a chronological timeline moving backwards that we can reflect on, in this instance, the year that was. So I want you to think of, try for 5, but if you can at least come up with 3, that's fine enough, but let's try for 5 big rocks throughout the year. So start by giving yourself 5 spaces. Now I've made mine go up and down a bit because it doesn't have to be a perfect line. You may want to measure those out and make them look perfectly in line. That's totally up to you. This is your page. You can add your own flair to it. But these 5 circles are going to be your big rocks for the year. So these are the defining moments. If you had to pick 5 defining moments, what were they? Now, I want you to represent each one of those big moments in each of the circles with a really simple icon and either a word or a short phrase so that you know what you mean. You don't have to write this thing out in full. This is a symbol going onto your page to represent the thing. As long as you know what the symbol represents, it's working. So, for example, doing this at the end of the year 2020, where a good portion of the year was spent at home in lockdown, maybe that is a huge, big rock that you had to contend with this year. So maybe just the fact that you were working at home is a big rock. Maybe you achieved some sort of milestone. Maybe you hit a fitness goal and you want to kind of recognize that. Maybe you became an auntie or an uncle for the first time, and you want to show yourself proudly with the new family member, whatever it might be. Let's say you got a puppy. There's no rules around what makes a big rock and what doesn't. And there are no rules around how you need to represent them. But the first thing you're going to do is come up with what the big 5 were. What were your big rocks? From there, we're going to divide our page into sections. So as you can see, this kind of gives us 4 sections around our timeline. So we're going to start top left with what were the things or the thing that challenged you or taught you the most. So start by writing that heading up. Now, once you have your heading, you can start to think of the answer if it is coming to mind quickly for you. And you may want to get those words down straight away and then think about the icon that represents those words. Or it might be an image that comes to you first and you want to get that image down in icon form and then add the words to it. Go with the flow. Go with whatever comes to mind for you. So then flipping over onto the right-hand side, but we're staying at the top of the page, we now want to think about, what are you the most grateful for? So what has this year given you that you are just filled with gratitude about. So again, let's get that heading in there. And then you can start to think of your answer, or you can come back and fill those answers in later. Now, we're very intentionally switching to the bottom of the page, but moving back over into the left, into the past. We're intentionally, symbolically doing this for our brains because in this quadrant, we are going to capture what we are choosing to let go of. So what is something that you're going to choose to leave here that's not going to come with you beyond this point? Because that's an important part of taking a retrospective lens. It's not just about getting bigger, getting better, setting the next goal, moving on. Sometimes you need to actually pause and say, what am I choosing to leave behind? You can't keep dragging it all with you. And this retrospective is a great way to make those calls before you go ahead and set the next goal, because you can choose to not drag the full amount of baggage with you into that next goal. So once you know what you want to let go of, then there's going to be maybe one or two things that you want to make sure you do actually take with you, that you want to focus in to intentionally take with you. So let's capture those now. What are you taking forward into the next year, phase, project, whatever it might be? Now, once again, for each of these quadrants, you want to get your answer down in both icon and word form. Remember, your pictures don't have to stand alone here. They work together with the words. So the icon represents the thing, the word explains the icon, and together they have embedded meaning that at a glance comes to life for you. And I guess that's the important thing, is that you are the main audience for this page. You want to be able to look at this and have all of this thought process come flooding back to you in a moment, as a strong kind of mental basis for going through this activity. So once you have this page, this is your reference point. You can look back at this. You can use this as the springboard that you then go and do productive planning for the next thing off of. You haven't lost it here, you haven't forgotten anything, but you've productively drawn a line in the sand and made yourself ready for the next phase. And that's the really powerful thing about retrospectives, is it gives us the brain space and the permission to move forward. So I encourage you, before you sit down to do any form of planning, to take some time to use a retrospective approach to close out the previous phase. You'll find it's a really powerful way to do it. And of course, as I would say with anything, a plan is great when it's written down, but it's even more powerful when it's illustrated, and using a visual language that means something for you. So that is the basic template that I wanted to share with you today. I hope you have taken enough notes down and you understand the process that you can go away now and make it into something really powerful for you. And if I've sparked something and you've really enjoyed this pen to paper approach, if you've really enjoyed this approach to using these visual principles to add meaning to your page, then I encourage you, please do come along to the Thoughts Drawn Out website, because we have plenty more stuff to offer you. There are some great things in our tool shop. If you want to check it out, you can get copies of our book. We have some great card decks with different icons to teach you how to draw. You can get some sketchbooks to capture. We have plenty of courses and things like that, all designed to inspire the doodler in you. I also encourage you to, on the website in our Learning Hub, you'll see an option for our Doodle a Day 30-day drawing challenge. You can sign up to this at any time. It's a very simple course that basically sends you one prompt every day for 30 days to give you a reason to put pen to paper. It's going to teach you to build some drawing skills, build a visual vocabulary, and start to unlock the power of drawing as a communication tool for you. So this doesn't kick off on any particular day. You can start it whenever it suits you. So I encourage you to jump in and give it a go. Thank you very much for joining us today for our first Scribe Tribe session, a drawn retrospective. We're going to be holding a lot more of these, so please do check back on the website for more opportunities to get pen to paper. Thank you.